to the Plugged In podcast, a new project from the Institute for Energy Research. To find out more about our work, visit our website at instituteforenergyresearch.org.
Welcome to the Plugged In podcast. I'm Alex Stevens, a policy analyst here at the Institute for Energy Research. Joining me today is Alan Gilmer, the founder of Drillinginfo. Prior to starting Drillinginfo in 1999, Alan was an independent oilman for 7 years, co-founding 3 profitable exploration and production companies. Today, Alan is active in all aspects of Drillinginfo's new product development and is widely recognized for his leadership and vision. He holds several patents in the field of component seismology, and he's one of the great entrepreneurs of the modern oil and gas industry. Alan, thanks for taking the time to speak today.
Glad to be here.
Tell me about your career before you started Drillinginfo. How did your work as a geophysicist lead to you founding the company?
Well, I worked for a big oil company, Marathon Oil Company, as a geophysicist, and left them in 1993 to go out on my own. I started a seismic company to go shoot and acquire, process, and interpret 3D seismic surveys in return for working interest. We were the very first to ever go do that, and just always trying to figure out ways of how could I go lever my way into the oil business, because I did not have a big bankroll or what have you, and that was my first foray as an independent. So it was, and as such, I was taking deals from everybody and everywhere from the Canadian border to the Mexican border, and I found that I was very dependent on the people I was taking deals from in order to get the data necessary to do the due diligence. And there's a lot of moral hazard, involved in that, and that whole piece.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll get into, is how Drillinginfo and the information you guys provide there, how much that's changing things in the industry. Why don't you just give our listeners a quick summary of what Drillinginfo does? I think most of our listeners are... It's probably split between people who are interested in policy issues and industry people. So there's probably a lot of people who are familiar with you guys. If you just run through like the services you provide and maybe just a quick history of the company.
Sure. I think Drillinginfo today really resembles that joke about 6 blind people trying to describe an elephant. And based on where you touch it, you have a different opinion of what Drillinginfo really does. But how it started and what we were really trying to do is we were trying to collect enough information, collecting an active database of information that really could be used to describe the ecosystem of the whole oil and gas patch. And we started in the lower 48, and we've expanded that to the world. And the more that we can, the more pieces of information we collect, the more workflows that we can model, the more software we can build around that on a SaaS basis to help kind of define, make better decisions. That's really kind of our motto, is better, faster decisions. And so information is core to that. And, we walked into a world in which was filled with empty software and raw data, and you had to figure out how to make all of it fit together to ask a static question. And we just flipped that on its head, said, let's go collect data, let's go build software around it, and let's make it active and multi-tenant, and that was what started us, and that was what made us the fastest and biggest SaaS software in the oil and gas industry, and most quickly and widely adopted software application in the history of the oil business.
Yeah, prior to platforms like Drillinginfo, one of the big challenges and costs in the oil and gas industry was access to information and local knowledge about specific formations and drill sites. It's a big part of the oil and gas recovery process. So, in my view, Drillinginfo's biggest contribution has been making all that information sort of a little bit more democratic, so more people have access to it. Can you talk a little bit more about what the industry was like before big data and how things have changed?
Yeah, if you were an independent, for instance, you probably worked a 2 or 3 county area, because that was really all you could really know. Who were the service providers? What were they doing? What were the producing formations and things like that? It was only bigger companies, big companies that could go and build frameworks to be able to look and explore and to produce in various different basins and areas. And that was the only way they really got that was to hire the people necessary that had that experience into their company to go do that. And So it was a very, very different world when we started this around 2000. And I think today, everybody takes for granted the fact that you can work pretty much anywhere you want to, in any basin you want to, and getting up to speed in any basin is relatively easy. And I like to think that we were kind of fundamental in bringing that expectation to the market.
Yeah, in response to a lot of the growth and innovation, there's been a lot of discussion about the data that we use in the industry there. People have been rethinking old metrics. The best example is probably the weekly oil rig count. Could you explain Drillinginfo's role in all of that, and what are some other metrics that you believe the industry should be rethinking?
Well, I think most. The reality is the Baker Hughes rig count is still a standard. I mean, it drives the market based off of their the number that they put out weekly, and as a kind of a metric with regards to which direction things are going. I mean, it's amazing. I think it's amazing. There's a lot of different metrics in which, especially for price of oil, people that speculate price of oil they depend on very, very weird, incomplete pieces of information to make these decisions. So I'd say that rig counts was always a picture of the health of the industry, and for us, it became, as rigs got more efficient, we needed to know much more than just some sort of general pulse of an industry. And as we started drilling more and more horizontals, those rig counts became more and more meaningless. And frankly, it's a big problem that the industry has. That the industry today is built around the price of oil and gas, and the people that speculate on the price of oil and gas, which, if you think about it, a forward curve is just nothing more than a crowdsourced number that is rarely right, and never right, actually. So, but it's it's an interesting, kind of an interesting metric. But these are driven. I mean, they're influenced by these snapshots of very tiny pieces of information with regards to the global supply demand that is so incomplete that it's just it's kind of insane to think that the biggest industry on the planet is driven by these tiny snapshots of stuff that people make these huge inferential leaps on.
Sure, and we've incorporated your guys' daily rig count in our morning newsletter that we send out every day. I've listened to a few other interviews that you've done, and one theme that has come up in every single one of those conversations has been transparency within the industry. And just interested to know how Drillinginfo's service and your view on these different metrics play into your view on transparency in the industry.
I believe, I have a strong belief that free market capitalism depends on transparency. And, a lot of people don't like transparency, especially those people that have access to information that they don't want anybody else to know about, and that is the story of business. But frankly, the more transparent that we can be as a business, the important part is that it allows us to attract players into the business. And for this industry, that means independent oil and gas producers. This is an industry that actually has 23,000 upstream oil and gas, upstream companies that serve the upstream in oil and gas, including operation, close to 10,000 operators. And that is a wonderful metric. It's so different than what most people think of as oil business, where everybody thinks big oil. And I can't tell you how important that's been to the United States. It reduces the friction of every kind of everything, because you have a whole lot of people that are being very clever trying to figure things out. And, our goal is to make sure that those people that want to participate in this industry can participate in this industry.
It's clear Drillinginfo has done a lot to stimulate competition in the industry. I was One of the questions I was going to ask you was about who the typical users of your guys' services and stuff are. Is it mainly independents, or you guys have so many products that I'm sure it's people in the financial world too. And
50% of our 50% of our clients identify themselves as oil and gas producers, and the other 50% are everything from oil field services to government entities to certainly the financial sector, which is both kind of on the sell and buy side, both on the analyst and the analysts across the board, the banks. We're very well represented there, very strong with regards to them, and all the way down to guys putting deals together in their garage. I mean, that's and everybody from the largest oil company on the planet down to the smallest, and we're pretty proud of that reach. A lot of companies sit there and say, well, we're mid-market or this, that, or the other, and we're all market. We look at people that are producing, consuming energy, and we serve them all. One of the interesting things is we've been, I don't think people really quite realize this, but 70% of the utilities in the United States use us, use an artificial intelligence predictive analytics tool that we have to predict when they're going to actually need to cycle up gas plants or coal plants to be able to fill in the supply demand gap of renewable energy. And without those kind of tools, we'd be seeing a lot more brownouts and blackouts rolling through the country.
Definitely in the Northeast and back in my home state in Michigan. I know just a few weeks ago with the cold up in Minnesota, they were having problems with that. So I think another interesting thing that you guys do, you guys don't just put all this information in a database. You guys have speaking engagements, and your customers get access to online webinars. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that component and just upcoming events that you guys might have, or anything that you're interested in talking about there?
Yeah, we're always building out new tools, and we're always using those tools internally. We have groups of analysts that do a lot of consulting work for particular clients. We build out reports for people in general that are, and the big deal for us is we don't want it to be, nothing that we build out should be secret sauce. Shouldn't any be black box. Everything that we do, we provide the background. If you want to go subscribe to that, you can go replicate those things, figure them all out yourself. But one thing we're really excited about is this will be our second year of a project we call the Disruptors Conference, and that is the Disruptors Conference coming up in June, and that's where we try to bring people in from various different walks of life that are involved in the energy side, both from a policy side, policy makers, people that have been involved in policy making, to the producers, to the technologists that are coming in with new different ways of producing, and we bring in experts from the environmental groups. We bring in people from renewables, and we have kind of Chatham House discussions about what's coming and what could be what could disrupt, what could be disruptive on the whole deal. And it's just a chance for people to lift their heads up from the next quarter or 2 quarters and think about things from a longer term point of view. And these are discussions. They're not people giving talks, so to speak. It's people with particular expertise driving discussions, and they can get quite heated, but it's pretty fascinating. It's a great thing for us. And of course, we participate in also, the North American Prospect Expo is a big one for us. Depending on, on our trading and risk side, there's a big conference in Germany we participate in, and we always have someone somewhere, I think.
I think events like that are great. Here in Washington, there's sort of a narrative that basically says that fossil fuels and oil and gas are yesterday's technology, yet in the past decade, we've pretty much seen that to be proven the exact opposite.
Yeah, people don't like to get rid of their religion very easily, and it's unfortunately, there is a lot of that narrative out there, and it's completely false. I mean, the United States is the only country of any size that's actually reduced its emissions consistently for the last 15 years, and we did that by basically transitioning from just changing the ratio of what we were using natural gas and coal for. And today, we're in a situation where the United States is can produce gas at nearly a negative price. It's a byproduct, and it's cleaner than hell. And I don't understand why in the world we're not focused on how we go out there and export natural gas. If in fact we really cared, anybody, the UN or anybody actually really cared about emissions, because we are the one group on the planet that didn't decimate our economies, and we're the ones that actually made it happen. And it came from oil and gas, came from fracking.
What do you think explains that disconnect, though? You use the term religion. I think it's just something that goes back to maybe the 70s oil crisis. Ever since then, it seems like from a policy standpoint, the goal has been to just move off of oil. Is that the religion that you're talking about, or is it something else there?
Yeah, I think that there is a religion in that. I think that there's also been some pretty big businesses that have come around to take advantage of that, and American taxpayer largesse with regards to subsidies of things over the last 10 or 15 years as well. And whenever business gets involved in any of these things, and any time that government involves itself in terms of getting a grip on the commanding heights, funny things happen.
Looking down the road, what areas of the oil and gas industry are you most excited about? You mentioned earlier in our conversation here about some advanced technologies.
Well, we do a lot of AI and machine learning right here in our company, and what I think is funny is there is a disconnect between what it is and the terms that are thrown around. There's the concepts of these magical things that are out there that nobody quite understands, but they're going to change the world. And the disconnect between that and what they're really doing is pretty vast, but they are exciting. I mean, what we are training machines to do, how we are looking for patterns that we could have never looked for otherwise, is really exciting. And I think with regards to blockchain, I'm less enamored with kind of the cryptocurrency concept of it, as opposed to the distributed ledger aspect of it, and being able to go out there and manage assets, especially legal assets, in ways that can open up markets, because you can sell smaller increments of projects or things like that, or things that are focused on particular benches or what have you. I think there's a whole lot to be done on all of that, and we're very, very early stages. Anything that we can do to make this industry more liquid, the better it is.
Yeah, so my last question is, what do you see as being the big obstacles to the adoption of these things and to further progress in the industry, either in terms of public policy or other factors like maybe culture within the industry, or whatever comes to your mind?
I don't think that there's huge impediments other than the fact that this industry is amazingly complex, and I don't think that, and I put all of energy into this bucket, and I don't think that the normal American understands the complexity of the supply chain, of what keeps the lights on and what allows us to travel and what allows us to go out there and do everything. I mean, frankly, it's mind-boggling how big it is, and how few people really do appreciate it. So it's real easy to go out and talk about how we should replace it. But my God, it's once you get into the detail of it, it's really, really difficult. And you have to start in different pieces. And that's the reason we built what we were doing 20 years ago and continue to add to it, is because A connects to B, connects to C, connects to D, and then it all wraps around themselves and everything like that. And the more that you can collect, the more that you can start building these tools to go out there and radically change how you do any one of these workflows. And Today on Drilling Info, for instance, somewhere in some of our Drilling Info applications, over a third of the global capex travels. So we manage the funding or the movement of information of company to company of a third of the global capex, and the details of all those things. And it's amazing to think about what you can really do in terms of just building these tools, but you've got to go out there and have a system in which the data is structured appropriately and permissioned appropriately, and all these things that are, any one of which are kind of mind-numbing, and that's what we're great at. People are going to be looking back at today and seeing for instance, what we've been doing for the last several years in terms of acquisitions and putting things together, and then they're going to say, aha, that's what the hell they were doing. And that's the exciting part to me, because that's the reason I started the business, was how do we go out there and fundamentally change how we're doing things to make it more efficient. And the day that we can, the day that we start mining this for cash will be the day that I leave, because we have so much more to do with regards to making this a much better industry to be a part of.
I think that was a great place to end on. Where can people find a little bit more about Drilling Info?
www.drillinginfo.com.
Okay, my guest today has been Alan Gilmer of Drilling Info. Alan, thank you again for your time today.
Hey, I sure appreciate it, and thanks for all the hard work and great work you guys are doing.
Thank you.